Welcome to Wine Library TV. I am your host, Gary Vaynerchuk. And this, my friends, this is The Thunder Show, aka the internet's most passionate wine program. Big shout out to Tyler for sending us Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Mott. Ho! We always talk about when the wine gets a little too oaky, a little bit of a 2x4, Hacksaw's 2x4 in my grill piece. And that makes it a lot of fun to have Hacksaw. Kind of neat to have him with the Iron Sheik. I don't know if you remember this, late 80s, Iron Sheik and Hacksaw pulled over on the Jersey Turnpike, smoking a little of the hooch together, got pulled over. I was crushed. I was like, why would they be together? They're feuding. They can't be friends. Santa Claus was dead. Okay, so, big show today. Blind tasting. Mod. Let's not screw this up. I'm talking about myself. We're going to do a blind tasting on Brunello. I have 3 Brunello di Montalcinos here, and it's a lot of fun. Brunello is very much in the news. I won't go into a lot of the back history about, having to be in oak for 2 years and 4 years, 50 months after harvest are the wines allowed to be released, 4 months in bottle, 2 years in oak, all those rules. What we'll do is, Mott, we've done Brunello shows in the past, so link those up if you want a little bit of back history. We're going to start doing this more, so I don't have to repeat the same data. So we'll link them up, and this way you can get 2 shows for the price of 1. But what's a lot of interesting things going on right now with Brunello. Brunello is very much in the wine news. I don't know if you know about this, Mott, but there's a big controversy because, as we know, Brunello is only allowed to be 100% Sangiovese, and we have been hearing of some fraud in Italy. The U.S. Treasury Tobacco Department, or the Tobacco and Arms Department, whatever, have actually threatened to ban all Brunello a week from today if it's not figured out. And so I'm very interested about what's going on, and why this is very important to the Brunello region is, of the 7 million bottles that are produced each year, Mott, 25% come to the U.S. We are the Brunello market. These are some of the most sought-after wines in the Italian wine market in the U.S., and they're absolutely concerned right now about what's happening here. Over 1 million bottles have been impounded, and they're checking them out. A lot of, messy, maybe using grapes that are not allowed in producing it. So big news right now about Brunellos. There's a little bit of, not a scarcity, but a real question mark about their authenticity, as we know is a problem in our 2008 world that we live in. So one thing I find extremely fascinating about Brunello is that the limestone and sand soils that come in this part of Montalcino is very, very interesting, and very much the grape varietal, the clone of Sangiovese that's used with the soil, the terroir, is very impactful for these explosive, rich, tight, massive, structured, masculine red wines. If you don't know Montalcino, where Brunello is from, it's about 70 miles southwest of Florence, to give you a little bit of a southwest, of Florence, to give you a little bit of a little snapshot. What do you think, Mott?
Geography lesson.
Geography lesson. Oh, I want to mention the parody contest of Wine Library TV. Mott, I don't know if you know this. Somebody made Turd Library TV. It's amazing. Anyway, the parody contest is still coming. Still make your parodies. Get ready. There's a lot of great parodies from a couple years ago, but we're going to ask you to be me on camera. Throw them up on Vidler, YouTube, wherever you throw them up. Big contest coming with a massive prize. Stick with us. I'm working the final details. The grand prize is sick. So get your stuff together. Let's give this wine number 1, which is a Brunello. Most of these are going to range in the $40, $50 range. Let's give this a sniffy sniff. We got the big-ass glass here today, so that's a lot of fun. And so let's give it a smell. You're going to always notice there's always like a little bit of a brown hue around the Sangiovese, which is really interesting, especially as I whirl it. I get a little bit of that copper brown hue. On the sniffy sniff, I definitely get a little bit of a charcoal and beef jerky kind of component. There's definitely like a soury kind of dark sour cherry kind of thing going on. Like a rusty tin can, almost like Popeye the Sailor Man spinach, if you just throw it aside. What do you always do with that can? He always throw this. He was a litterer, that Popeye. Anyway, very much like a rusted can, sour cherry, like a rusted can of sour cherries. That's exactly what this smells like, actually. Let's give it a whirl. Little poopy, little fertilizer. Lots of tobacco. Wow. A lot of tobacco. I mean, I really feel like I'm eating tobacco leaf right now. A little high on the alcohol on the back end. A little too high for me, so I'm a little bit down on that factor. Really nice cherries, though, and great elegance. A lot of people look for that in Brunello. This has it. There's definitely a good solid backbone of fertilizer and soil, topsoil coming through on this. I also get like cabbage leaf on the back end. Well structured, massive wine. I need food. This is really beating me up. Left, right, left counter with an uppercut. And I'm a little bit like Don Flamingo here, and I'm going down for the count. Now, what I'm really concerned about is that I think it gets a little off balance on the finish. The heat is coming through a lot more than I'd like, and that's a problem. However, there is good mouthfeel, there's good structure, and this is a youthful baby of a wine, with Brunello's being able to last 10-15 years. I'd love to bring out some good old-fashioned cheese right now and munch on it while I drink this wine. Sorry, Sheik. And I think overall, I think that it's actually a pretty solid, well-made wine. I'm going to score it 89 plus points. I don't mind it. Knowing the prices of Brunello's, I'm a little bit concerned because obviously this means, you know, it's going to be 40, 50, 60 bucks. So 35 if we're lucky. So I would probably say it's a pass all in all for the price point. But if you're eating some wild boar or some, you know, believe it or not, this would be a great little wine for a this is kind of weird, but pasta and meatballs, I would love to have this. Again, there's a lot of alternatives, I think, from Tuscany, where the Brunello comes from, at $12 to $15 to $19 to $20 that are probably going to be equally as exciting as this wine. Yeah. It's the finish. It's always the finish. It's always the way you finish, Mott.
Let's see, remember.
Let's move on. Indeed. Wine number 2. Mott, zoom in! Alright. A little rinse. Had a little fun there. Little rinsey rinse. Okay. Wine number 2. Let's give it a sniffy sniff. Hacksaw, get ready. Wow. Did not expect this kind of nose. This is a little bit more... Wow, I probably would have got baffled in a double blind tasting. Would have never thought this is Brunello. Way too New World on your nose. Hello, Oak Monster. Prominent on the nose. And I have a feeling we will be taking Hacksaw's entire 2x4 in my mouth. I could be wrong. It could be a nose thing. But huge oak, which means it's loaded with vanilla. I get like cherry pie loaded with gobs and gobs of Cool Whip, you know, and then a vanilla extract on top of it. Just loaded with wood and oak and vanilla. Very New World in its approach. Very non-traditional Brunello. And that saddens me. I hate when wines get a little bit away from tradition. I mean, I don't mind new technologies. Follow me on Twitter. But, you know, I get it. So let's give it a whirl. Gorgeous pomegranate flavors ripping through my palate. A little bit of Asian spice. I also get a little leathery component. I like the body of this wine and the elegance and the smoothness. A little but not as much as on the nose. It controls it a lot more than I think, or a lot more than I thought it could. It's still there, and it's too bad. It didn't need it, and that's what's pissing me off. I hate when we get into the over-oaking, hiding the true essence of the land and the terroir. There really was no need to go there on this. Really darn it. A real darn it. And that's really too bad. Good fruit overall, a little too much vanilla for me. There are people that probably would love this. And think of this as an imaginary blend of a Brunello mixed 50% with a Paul Hobbs cab, which had a lot of oak, if you remember in the last Cabernet blind tasting. So take like a, I don't know, a Banfi Brunello, because it's that kind of quality, and mix it with a Paul Hobbs Cabernet, and that's what you get. This wine will last for 7 to 8 years, in my opinion. Would go very well with most meats right now. There is a good subsection of wine drinkers that I think would enjoy this wine. I, however, am not one of them. I think it kind of is half pregnant. Not here, not there, and to me that's a pass. I'm going to score this wine 87 points and give it a good solid capital D for disappointment because I feel like it's actually pretty okay. It just got over oaked. Ho! That's what I'm going to start saying instead of the oak monster. Vincent McMahon's probably going to sue me. He gets crazy about that kind of stuff. Alright, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Swirly, swirl, swirl, and I don't care. What else, Mont? No shout-outs here today. I talked about the parody contest. Feeling pretty good on this Tuesday. Alright, wine number 3. Again, Brunellos are really some of the best wines out of Italy. They're so fun with a big meal. I really enjoy them, but I have seen a little bit too much push to the new world over-oaking, I guess going for the American palate when 25% of your consumption globally is coming from the country that you've seen has really gravitated to the fruit bombs and the overexplosion that we saw from Australia and Spain in the mid-2000s. Can't believe we're saying that. I think that what they need to understand and what I believe in life and why I do this show even, you need to be who you are. You need to do what you do. You need to come from the heart and soul, the tradition of your land, and you don't need to follow or fly by every trend. Though you might have a hiccup, staying true to yourself and following your DNA is where it's at. Speaking of DNA, did a great video on GaryVaynerchuk.com about DNA. So, Mott, link it up. The DNA game. Anyway, that video really sums up what I feel about a lot of wineries in the world, and specifically that wine number 2 really took... I don't know if you noticed, my tone came down a little bit. I'm just like a little sad. Sniffy snip. This is much more classic. I like the nose. Pretty tight, but good solid form of cassis coming through on this, which is nice. This also has a little bit, really kind of cassis-y. I like that. Cassis-y. Tight nose. By far the tightest of the bunch. I do get a little plum skin coming through as well. I do get a subtle charcoalness. You know, it's kind of like after you barbecue, because we just barbecued the other day, and you're cleaning the, I love burnt. I love burnt. Like, give me a burnt steak. I like it. I like burnt food. You? I like it charcoaled up. This has a little bit of that going on, which I like. Oh, now it's starting to open up a little bit. Actually, I got a little bit like a Bazooka Joe, like bubblegum pop. Like, remember, Bazooka Joe with the comics? I get bazooka gum. Smell this, Mott. Actually really opened up to that. Do you bazooka gum. Do you get it a little bit?
That bubblegum smell.
Right? It's bubblegum and a little bit of that powdered sugar that you get with bazooka. Wow, this really comes through with Bazooka Joe. And I'm excited. Let's give it a whirl. Crazy. Really bubblegummy. A tad lighter than the 2 other counterparts. So this is like a Brunello, unless Ian's fooling around with me, because it is a little lighter. Almost, I wouldn't say it's a Rosso, but it's definitely lighter. I don't know. It's very much lighter. However, I would almost call this Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir. Did I double up there? Pinot Noir Brunello, which I think is very fascinating. If you're a Pinot Noir lover, this lightness, I wouldn't call it light. It's a medium body, clearly lighter than the last 2, but a lot more elegance. I get a lot more floral components, a potpourri action thing going on here. I get a nice little paprika component in the mid-palate, a little bit of like green and red peppers on the back end with a little bit of like Tabasco sauce. It gets a little, it doesn't get V80 because it's not vegetable. So it's just Tabasco sauce. I always think of V8 because I used to make ghetto, non-alcoholic Bloody Marys when my mom and dad used to do it and put the celery stick in there. Really nice little wine. By far the most classic, by far the most elegant. This brings me back to the Brunellos I got excited about in 1997 and even 1990 before that, because I'm a lot more old school in the wine industry than you think. A very solid effort with great complexity. I love the back end dryness. It just sucks me up like a prune. I look like Yoda in my mouth right now. Just very, very elegant fruit. I like the red cherries. I love all these exotic spices. It feels like, I feel like I went to India and just ate a lot of the spices at the market. Very interesting. Bouncing and still bouncing on my palate. The lightness factor, medium body in comparison to the full-bodied wines. I really like this wine. A lot more up my alley. Didn't need to punch me in the face. No, this was like the elegance of the sweet science. Kind of like Pernell Whitaker. Didn't have to be Mike Tyson. Pernell Whitaker was right there for me as my favorite fighter in those years that I loved boxing. Great effort. I'm feeling this wine. I'm going 92 points on it, Mont. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Let's unveil them. So classic. All right. 92. What did I score the middle one? 87. And 89 plus, right? All right. 87 points. Wine number 2 is... Wow. A very big name in Brunello. And you know what? It's a mistake. I'm telling you right now, this wine is way too New Worldized. It is a 91-point Wine Spectator wine, 58 bones, Fonti. It's gotten as high as 95 points a couple years ago, Mont. Very sought-after Brunello producer, and I've got to be very honest with you, I'm very disappointed with it. It's way too New World, and Fonti, I got to be honest with you, I really like to see you go back to a little bit more of a traditional style. If I want this, I would really legitimately blend a Cabernet into most of my Chianti Sangiovese wines, so... That's that. Wow. I mean, I still give it an 87 because I had respect for it. There were some things going on there. It just... I would have never guessed it was a Brunello in a blind tasting. Double blind, I would have been crazy. Wine number 1, 89 plus. Ruffino. Grappione Mazzi, 2001 Brunello. He didn't mark it up, so I don't know how much it is or what the rating is. But if I remember, it's in high 40s and rated 90 or 91 as well. Solid producer, Ruffino. A lot of times looked down upon for its basket Chianti and things like that, but they do make nice wines, and this was a good effort. Very close to being a wine that I really got excited about. And finally, actually, let's do this. There you go. Finally, the wine that won it all, folks. Wine number 3. La Racina, 2003 Brunello. Once again, Ian screwed me. But I think it's like a $48, $50 wine that rolls in at like a 91-point wine from somebody as well. Very good. Killed it. Loved it. Go and find this if you want to get into Brunello. Luckily, it's a fairly available wine, and I hope you enjoy it. Also a wine that's gotten some massive scores in the past. I remember even like a 97-pointer a couple years ago. This was a fun episode. I like doing 3 little blind wines. Pound it out, give a little knowledge. Mont, link up those old Brunello episodes for the people that want to learn about, 4 years, 50 months before after harvest when they're allowed to be released. That's why the current vintages are the 2003s. I think they might be on 4s, but no, I think they're, probably. But anyway, very interesting wines. Brunello has a lot of tradition, though some people are kind of getting away from it. Has a lot of interesting wines, and when you get a wine like this, with this kind of complexity and this kind of richness, but still light. And when I say richness, I mean, I don't want to call it richness because I think that gives people an intention of fullness because this is more medium body. Clean. I want to call it clean fruit, You just taste the essence of the ground. Subtle different flavors. Just romantic. Romantic. They're romantic wines. I like it. La Racina ripped it. Question of the day. Let me rephrase that. Story of the day. Give me your best Brunello story. And for all you lurkers and everybody else who doesn't want to leave a comment, even though I put my heart and soul out here, just say, I don't have one yet. Bring it. Because you, with a little bit of me and a whole lot of hacksaw, Jim Duggan, we are changing the wine world. Send some more wrestlers, especially the plastic, the rubber ones.